Build complexity. It's always something that you deal with when you're playing any kind of ARPG. But in Path of Exile 2, there are tons of ways that you can now approach the game that are going to allow for build complexity to be a lot more lenient, but at the same time have tons of ceiling with a really accessible floor. In this video today, I want to talk about how Path of Exile 2 will be doing its builds, how the class diversity works, how Ascendancies work, how all this really kind of comes together to make a very complete and better system than we've seen in almost every other ARPG leading up to this. In my typical fashion of upfronting the knowledge of my videos, though, let me give you the down and dirty of what I'm about to go into. So basically, when it comes to choosing a class, do not worry about it. Pretty much just choose any class for the most part, because the only things that really matter when it comes to choosing your class is where you start on the passive tree, and then lastly, what your ascendancies are. So really what you want to do is take a look at the ascendancies that are available to you. In the early access, that will be 2 ascendancy classes per class of the 6 total classes. When the game launches with all 12 classes, you will have 3 ascendancies to choose from. So this allows you tons of variability on how you want to approach the game. If you want to be a warrior that summons up skeletons and stuff like that, you can do so easily, since every single skill in the game is bound to a weapon skill grouping or something of the sort. And then from there, you just push across the passive tree to connect to those locations and then choose the ascendancy that really leans into it. Now, of course, a lot of those terms might go over your head. I'll be breaking them down into each respective section that you can just simply jump ahead to any part of this video that interests you the most using the chapters in both the timeline and the description. But if that's all you wanted to know, please feel free to go ahead and shut the video down and get back to enjoying that hype up to Path of Exile 2, which comes out on December 6th, or at least goes into early access. If you are heading out though, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe if this video ends up helping you, as each one of those things helps me out in a massive way. You can check out a link to my Twitch below, where I will be streaming this game and plenty of others every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, with giveaways and tons of other fun things. Well, let's get started here on the build complexity within Path of Exile 2. So I'm going to do this pretty low tech here, but I'll splice in some fun visuals from the game itself. But to start us off, let's talk about the passive tree. And I've done a whole video on this subject matter that you can find linked in the upper right-hand corner. That's a 20-minute long video, so let me just truncate this down to like 2, 3, 4 minutes, whatever I can do. But basically, the passive tree is a lot easier. You start right now, you're going to start at these locations. So choosing a class, you're going to fall into 2 classes starting at basically 1 location, so it's kind of split up into 2s across the whole board. And going about this is a lot easier. It's easier to navigate. The naming convention's a lot easier. Understanding it is a lot faster. And just to kind of show you the information here that we use in that video, the tree is divided up pretty much by general passives, more focused passives, and then highly specialized passives in that kind of ring around. And each one of these white rings is representative of a attribute highway, which allows you to traverse the passive tree a lot easier. And so that way you can go from, say, maybe the Ranger up here to the Templar using either this red route or this blue route. Just very, very succinctly, very easy. You don't have to worry about as much stuff. And it's just not as much of a pain in the ass. I'll go ahead and, yeah, there we go. You can see that. Now, another big portion of this is the way that your weapon specializations are going to work. Your weapon sets are going to allow you to have additional passives. So, for example, here, if my passive tree is set this way, one weapon set can have up to 20 additional passive skills added into your total passives, and it swaps with each swap of the weapon set. So your build complexity becomes a lot more malleable, a lot easier, because you can swap up your build a little bit based off of the weapon you're using. And all of your skills come from your weapon, not from your character class. Ascendancies will be a whole different traversal of that. But basically, if I have weapon set 1, that gives me these passives right here. But I'm going to swap over to weapon set 2. That's going to turn on these passives. And then just swapping them back and forth turns those passives on and off, and not that one. So that's the down and dirty of how the passive tree works. That is going to allow us to have a ton of more complexity with a lot more of an ease of access, a lot less of a headache trying to navigate all these different nodes. We have passive nodes, we have notable passive nodes, we have our keystones, and then jewels, and that's it. It's pretty straightforward. So let's now go into our skills and how those all operate. So the gem cutting portion and skills in Path of Exile 2 are going to be pretty awesome and pretty accessible. Some things will be elemental bound or at least grouped together. Like take, for example, elemental, occult, primal. That's pretty much just saying like, hey, you know what? Lightning damage, fire damage, ice damage, it's in elemental. But dagger skills and the ones linked to them, or mace skills and the ones linked to them, like earthquake here, earth shatter, spinning, inferno, those are linked to the mace weapon. So you use specialization stones that you get from quests to unlock each one of these that you don't have by default as your starting class. So for example, if I am a warrior, I start with mace. I think mace, axe, sword. I don't really know. We know mace for sure. But maybe I want to be a character going with this theme of a death knight, where I'm a warrior that uses a mace or a two-handed sword, and then I also use occult magic to summon up skeletons. Well, occult is right there. Scepter, wand. We're not sure all the things that are included in this, but we know, for example, scepter is for sure, because that is what the witch starts with. So getting the specialization from occult that unlocks this, that then allows me to tether in those abilities, I can now create basically a death knight that uses a two-handed weapon and pulls together summoning capabilities. So this gem cutting screen allows us a ton of flexibility within our class. We can be a ranger that then uses elemental magic. We can be a mercenary that also summons up wolves whenever they release druids and that stuff through whatever primal has and what have you. Or maybe we want to be a Templar and do stuff with elemental magic as well. Whatever the situation is, it can be created for you. And they've already said that they want the game to have a far more accessible amount of classes. And yeah, sure, broken stuff is going to exist within the game, but they've really showed us through how you can craft legendary weapons and items and stuff like that and add modifications, that creating broken stuff is far more of a dealer's choice. Like, how do you want this thing to be broken versus, hey, here's a unique and this unique is broken. Use this unique with this build. It's more about crafting the legendary unique that you want to have a very specific focus in the way you want, because that's the build you've made. So making a broken build is really down to how nuanced do you want to get, versus, hey, this is the flavor of the month. These 5 builds are king right now. Just use the S tier builds, which I think is very cool. It will always digress to that because people will always use build guides and what have you. But it looks like this time around, our build complexity can link to however complex we want it to be and however broken we want to go with it. Yeah, do you want to jump all the way into the hardest content, making the hardest thing, the best things with the sweatiest stuff, the most elite, blah, blah, blah. You can do that. Or you can make a very viable build by approaching the game however you want without having to jump that hard in the paint. And that brings us over to this screen, which is PoE2skills.com, which allows us to basically kind of take everything you see here with a grain of salt. None of this is concrete detail. Everything is 100% like conjecture for the most part. None of these numbers should be taken at anything other than, again, a grain of salt. But this gives you a sense of how you can really build something like this out. Like, okay, let's type in sword. Oh, maybe not sword, mace, because not all this stuff has been properly sourced. Okay, ancestral word tour, leap slam, armor breaker, bone shatter. I can add these things in here on top of my summon skeletal frost mage, summon skeletal cleric, summon skeletal warrior. So I have a character that's already in the kind of beginning throes of making a death knight by going down that route of combining those two things. And maybe too, I bring in, is it frost? A frost bolt and bring in actual like ice magic, or I use curse stuff to bring some of the curses in from witch, going with whatever direction I want to go with. So this gives you a sense that building the build you want is going to come down to the skills that you want. So am I going to use a two-handed weapon in one hand and the scepter in the other to pull the skills in? So I can have weapon sets that swap around to the different passives I want, which we talked about earlier. That's how it's really going to be approached. And I think that this opens the door for builds that are far more catered to the way you want to play rather than the way that the community, the internet wants you to play. And I cannot stress this enough. Fuck off what the internet is telling you about what to play, what's good, what's not. It doesn't matter. And nothing anyone says about what's good right now is even going to hold water once the game launches into early access on the 6th, because everything is purely conjecture. And even when it does launch, play the hell however the hell you want, because it's early access and you get to have fun. It's none of it's concrete. It's never going to last forever. And then once you learn the game, make a broken build, follow a build guide. And there's nothing wrong with following a build guide to begin with. But my point here is you can see that the door is open to you to make a character that you really want. And I really stress that doing that is going to be a lot of the fun process of building these characters out. There's far less permanence in Path of Exile 2 than there is in Path of Exile 1. There's far less permanence in your character class than there is in almost any other ARPG, right? Like you choose a necromancer in Diablo. You are a necromancer with those necromancer skills. You choose, what the hell is that other game that is really good? Last Epoch. You pretty much are locked into whatever that character has to offer. This time around, you've chosen a witch because you want to take advantage of Infernalist, or you want to take advantage of Blood Mage, the two Ascendancies, which we're about to go into. And then I'm going to fill in whatever spells I want or skills that I want off of the weapons I want to use on the passive tree I want to go about. So while everything seems so intimidating, oh my God, there's so many options, it's actually very focused in however you want to approach it versus being focused across a whole realm of possibilities within a very finite scope. So for our Ascendancy classes, we have six classes that are going to start the game with us, right? And of those 6, we'll have 2 Ascendancies per. So for example, here, the Witch, like I talked about earlier, we have the Infernalist, and we have the, I think this is the Infernal. No, that's the Infernalist. And then we have the, it's basically a demonologist. Blood Mage and a demon and an Infernalist. Good Lord, I'm all over the place. And I can turn into a succubus, I can summon up demon hounds, I can have a lot of fun with one direction. Or I focus on using blood magic and pulling from my own health pool. I have a storm mage or a chronomancer for the wizard, the demon hunter or something else for the mercenary. It's like a gloom split, spobble splops. There's a bunch of different directions you can go with. So when the game actually launches on the 6th, because right now we don't really know what these do outside of little teasers from information we've seen on the stream. We have this guy right here for the passive tree for one of the mercenary classes. I think this one's the witch hunter or the demon hunter. Witch hunter, I think it is. And that doesn't give us a ton, right? It's just kind of vague, whatever. And we have, again, just quick little descriptions. So when the game comes out on the 6th, and hopefully by the time we get up to it, we'll have more information about these Ascendancy classes. Have the Ascendancy class be the thing that determines what class you want to try the first time around. Because these Ascendancy classes are going to grant us additional passives, as you see. And we'll get 2 points towards this every time we complete a trial. Either the trial or the ascended trials that you complete in the end game. So this gives us the ability to really kind of fine-tune how we want this class to perform. Do I want to work on a lot of the different variants of ammo types from the, from the mercenary? Okay, that means I'm going to go with this Ascendancy. Do I want to work on a lot of the summoning and demon stuff from the Witch? Okay, then I'm probably going to go with the Infernalist. Or do I want to work on a ton of the Warrior Totem stuff from Warrior? Okay, I think Titan is the one for that one. But basically, the Ascendancy is going to give you a sense of the direction you want to go with specific skills. So regardless of what starting class you go with, because remember, starting class is only going to dictate where you start on this. The in-between are the skills you choose, the passives you choose, and then it culminates in the Ascendancy you decide on. And that Ascendancy is determined upon which starting class you have. As we just said, 2 Ascendancies per class at the start, with eventual 3rd Ascendancy for each class. So at launch, we'll have 12 classes with 3 Ascendancies each. Culminating all this together, we have the conclusion of our video. And it's really much down to understanding how all this is going to work, right? You have at the base your decision for a class. Let's just say I'm going to go Ranger. Then I'm going to have to decide what kind of character I want out of this Ranger. Do I want to focus on bow skills? Do I want to use bows and one-handed swords? Whatever the situation is, I'm going to create 2 separate weapon sets for this character. Those weapon sets are going to grant me 20 additional passive points per weapon set that are unique to that weapon set. So now those passive points are going to activate when that weapon set is activated. So using my bow and arrow is going to give me the 20 that I have selected for the bow and arrow. When I switch over to the sword, it's going to give me the 20 I have activated for the sword. And then I'm going to tap into all of the skills that are accessible by those 2 weapons or whatever situation I'm going to go with. And then this all comes together with the Ascendancy class, which is then going to fine tune the direction I'm taking with my skills. If we want to use that other comparison I used earlier, maybe I start as a warrior and use a lot of witch abilities, go into the witch portions of the passive tree to get a lot of stuff towards my minions, but then I end up going with the heavy damage dealing ascendancy of the warrior to pull in more personal damage outside of minion damage with my builds. Or maybe I go start with a witch and focus on a lot of the warrior passives and all of the warrior skills to give me personal damage, and then go with the ascendancy of infernalist to really send my character to the next level and summon up demons and stuff like that on top of my undead. Whatever the situation is, you have the choice to go about it however you want. So hopefully this video clears up a lot of the excitement, but also clears up a lot of the confusion that you might have about what the best class is, how am I going to approach the best class, what's the best weapon skills to use. Again, none of us know any of that. Anyone who says they do, they don't have access to the game, so they're lying. But primarily what it comes down to is just choosing what you want, going about it however you feel is the right way, and then figuring it out towards the end, because we're going to have more build guides and stuff like that in 1, 2, 3 months outside of the game. And even then, it's worth noting how many of your plans are going to get foiled 2-3 weeks into early access when they decide to change passive trees around, add in another class, changing the way that some of the interaction works, more ascendancies, all of these things. I think a lot of analysis paralysis exists in video games in the industry right now, and that's fine. I mean, I'm riddled with it. But I think that analysis paralysis creates a failure to launch. And all you need to do is sit down and play, and you'll find out what you like faster than simply reading and trying to make the right decision ahead of time. There's no wasted time in a video game where you're having fun. Just, especially a game like a hack and slash action RPG, smash your face against a bunch of things and decide what you do and don't like about how you're smashing your face against them, and pick a new weapon to do the same thing over and over. It's half the fun of the experience. But if you have any takes on the skill system, anything about build complexity, anything like that you want to share in the comment section below, by all means, please do so. I am no Path of Exile expert. I am trying to get better and better at it, so I'm always down to hear more information, more corrections, anything like that. I'm always open to it. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.